Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Mitchell with FF Real Talk coming at you for the third time today. We're going to go right into the wide receivers that I want to highlight. It's going to be another top 50 list, but I'm going to highlight 5 guys. And this video is going to be shorter than the last 2 because I don't have a whole lot to say about these guys. A lot of these speak for themselves besides one. And we're going to start with my number 1 wide receiver and number 1 overall pick, and it's pretty much the number 1 overall pick from this site to that site to every site, and y'all know who it is. It's Antonio Brown. He's going to be over any running back. He's going to be over any wide receiver, any quarterback, anything. If you've got the number 1 draft spot, this is the guy you want to take. It's not by mistake, it's not by happenstance, and it's not a guess. He's generally very healthy. His production is second to none. His receptions, not just his touchdowns, but the number of catches and yards that he amasses year to year is increasing and increasing and increasing. His value is predicated on the health of Ben Roethlisberger, which is his only Achilles heel. But Ben tends to find a way to game it out. He's the type of guy that's always going to be there. And with Antonio Brown, even if his touchdowns regress and he doesn't get, let's say, double digits or more, his yardage and his catches. So if you're in PPR type leagues or even standard leagues, you're going to get everything you need out of this guy. Last year, he only got 10 touchdowns, but everyone knows how high his usage was, sky high. So as long as Ben is healthy, everything's going to be gravy for Antonio Brown. And with Le'Veon Bell out the first 4 weeks of the season, he's going to be counting on even more short and long passes. Expect the same as you saw last year and even more from Antonio Brown this year. If you're lucky enough to get that number 1 pick, you know who you're grabbing. If anyone's foolish enough to not take him number 1, you know who you're grabbing if you got the 2nd pick. Don't even think about it. Antonio Brown. My number 9 wide receiver is Brandon Marshall. He tied for number 1 in touchdowns among wide receivers last year, and I don't see that changing. With the signing of Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I never ever thought before last year that I would ever say that fighting to sign Ryan Fitzpatrick would be a bonus, but with the signing of him, it makes a lot of what you saw last year is going to be just an ever-flowing amount of the same thing. Brandon Marshall is one of those true gamers. He hasn't shown any signs of slowing, any signs of age, and he's one of the toughest and grittiest guys out there. It's going to be a lot of the same for him and for Eric Decker. So I actually see him as possibly finishing above some of the guys I have him ranked above. I got 8 guys ranked above him. I can see him finishing over Jordy. I can see him finishing over AJ and Dez, even Allen Robinson. But that's why you'll be able to get him as a steal. If you get Brandon Marshall in the 3rd round, you're doing great. And if you're able, like if you take like say Antonio Brown early and you go wide receiver, which I don't necessarily recommend, but it's nothing bad. If he's still out there on the board and you've got Antonio Brown and you're able to get Brandon Marshall when it comes back around to you with pick number 20, what would that be? 20 and 21? Why wouldn't you take it? If in a 10-person league, that is. Brandon Marshall is going to have another great year, him and Eric Decker. So keep an eye out on him. My number 14 wide receiver is Brandin Cooks. When I first started this channel, it was 2 years ago, and it was when he was a rookie. And everyone who watched my channel knew that I was high on him as the breakout rookie that year. And he was on his way to doing it until he got slowed by a bit of an injury. And last year, he had 5 weeks, well, the first 4 weeks, or first 5 weeks actually, he was a train wreck. Everyone thought who gambled on him was like, oh, this is going to bust. But after week 5, he amassed 923 yards. And I see him having a consistent campaign this year. He's going to be Drew Brees' #1 guy, and it's going to work out this year. I just got the feeling. I've trusted him from jump. And this year, in the 3rd year, the make-or-break year for him, this is going to be one of those guys where I can very well see him finishing in the top 8. If he plays 13 or more games, very easily seeing him finish among the top 8 guys. So if you're able to grab Brandin Cooks in the if you were able to get him in the 4th round, that's great. But I have no problem taking him with an early pick as my second. If you got him as a second receiver, you're great. But if he ended up being your first, I very well see him being a great pick. My number 25 wide receiver, and there's a reason why he's this low. It's because of last year. But number 25 wide receiver is Randall Cobb. Anyone who drafted any skill position player from Green Bay last year were extremely disappointed, even with Aaron Rodgers in certain spots. Eddie Lacy was a bust. Aaron Rodgers was a problem. Jordy Nelson, if you drafted too early last year, Jordy Nelson blew your team up. But no one, well, Eddie Lacy was, but very few people were as bad as Randall Cobb was. By week 8, he was, I imagine, on 50% of everybody's bench. And that's a player you took very early last year. And you thought it would turn into fantasy goodness with Jordy being gone. He'd take over. Some people aren't built for #1. And Randall Cobb is one of those guys that wasn't built for #1. And even worse, you thought Devontae Adams would jump into where he was. Devontae Adams obviously isn't built for #2. But if Jordy is as healthy as we expect him to be, I see Randall Cobb getting right back into the position he was the prior years, where he was sneakily dropping off top-tier numbers because of the attention that's paid to Jordy. I see him coming in this year as a strong WR2 play. He's going to be a wide receiver 2 very well, and you're going to be able to get him at wide receiver 3 prices this year. Keep your eye out on the discount and the cheap potential that you can get for Randall Cobb. Very good investment, because Aaron Rodgers is going to turn it on this year. I've got a great feeling about it. And the last one I'm going to discuss is a rookie this year, Corey Coleman. Speaking of trust, I have very little trust for a guy I actually love in terms of talent, and that's Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon is a knucklehead, man. And I don't know how long he's going to last. How long is it going to be before the next thing happens with him? Or how long he's going to be the #1 guy out there. When you take too long and you're out of the league, you just lose it. It's just one of those things. With RG3 at the helm, we're trying to see if this guy's going to be who we hope he can be after leaving Washington. But he had a great preseason game last week, 2 touchdowns, and maybe he's going to round out. I kind of got this feeling about RG3 too, so, keep your eye out on RG3 on that waiver wire, because that's where he's going to be. You might be able to get a steal as a second QB with him. But either way, Corey Coleman's going to be needed. RG3 is going to be checking down. I don't know if Coleman's going to be running out of the slot or he's going to be the second wide. And with Terrell Pryor coming into his own and looking like somebody that they're going to keep on the roster, I don't know if Coleman's going to be the second option or third option. But either way, I think he's going to be a sneaky option regardless, particularly among rookies. He's got lightning speed, and he's going to have predictably solid numbers, I believe, among rookies, especially with the predictability of Josh Gordon in that he may or may not be out there. Top tier talent as a rookie. Keep an eye on what he will probably do. Now he's my number 42 of my 50 in terms of wide receivers. So you'll be able to get him for very cheap and even $1 or $2 on auctions. So definitely keep him in mind when the time comes. I have him under Josh Gordon, but I could very well see him supplanting Josh Gordon if he doesn't have his stuff together. So yeah, that ends the wide receiver breakdown. Again, I'm going to post the entire list in the descriptions. If you got any questions, follow me on Twitter and ask me any questions on Twitter. If you want to ask why my rankings were this guy over that guy, feel free to do so. I'd love to answer that. And or you, again, just hit me up anywhere. You know how to do it. And even if you got questions, I haven't said this in a while, if you want to message me through email, it's ffheads, ffheads @gmail.com. So yeah, we're going to end this whole thing with the tight ends video coming next. So stay tuned, guys. All right.